everybody. Welcome to From the Ground Up. From the Ground Up, as you know, is a conversation with business owners, and we talk about their successes and their challenges, what they've overcome, the decisions they've made, and how they built their businesses from the ground up to the wonderful successes that they've had. And today, I'm very excited about today's podcast. Today I have Kevin Powderly. Welcome, Kevin.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Kevin is a good friend. I've known Kevin a long time. I've watched him go through various stages of his career and his life and have always admired and observed the wonderful success Kevin has had. Kevin comes to us by way of Long Island, grew up on Long Island, a big Irish family, kind of similar traits to what my background is coming out of New Jersey. He came down to Maryland. We'll talk about that. He joined the big, steady, stable company. And then one day the entrepreneurial bug bites and his business career goes from there. And that's when the story gets exciting. So Kevin, I'm looking forward to digging into everything. So big Irish family from Long Island. How big was that like? What a great way to grow up.
Yeah, great family opportunity. 8 kids, 6 boys, 2 girls, and 7 of us are 15 months apart from each other. So we were all best friends, and from sports to school to everything. But we all went our separate way, and I took off and came down to the University of Maryland. Yeah, and started my college career, and really never left. Yeah.
So 2 things brought you to Maryland. The University of Maryland and someone you met at the university.
Absolutely. My bride of 37 years, Emily, and 2 wonderful, amazing children, Patrick, and who just got married and had a son 2 months ago, and I have a daughter that got married 2 weeks ago. So might be going back to work soon.
Fantastic. So you came down, big Irish, I love that, within 15 months of each other. I mean, that is the prototypical up in the New York, New Jersey area. So you came down, you played lacrosse here in Maryland.
Yeah.
So you played in high school, big Long Island sport. Is that why you came to Maryland to play lacrosse?
No, actually, I wanted to go to school at a big university with a big football program. I did play lacrosse, but when I got to Maryland, I didn't play. I played club. Right. I got hurt, and then I was kind of just waffling around. My dad was like, why don't you get serious with your academics and stop chasing a ball around? So I got focused on my school and what I wanted to do, and took it from there. Once I got there, and then I met my wife at the university and graduated, and off we went to New York for 5 years to start in a technology business back then, which was 1985.
So that's technology before the internet, right?
That was technology before the internet.
Right. And that was raw.
That was the Flintstone ages of technology.
So you went to New York and you started your career with?
I worked with a firm up there called Businessland. They were really out of San Jose, California, had a huge operation in New York. They had about 200 offices. They were probably one of the fastest growing system integrators, and worked for them for 5 years, relocated to the Maryland area, and then GE came in and acquired them, and stayed with GE for about another 12 years and had a great career there and really enjoyed it, but always had that entrepreneur spirit in me, and I knew at some point I was launching out. And every year it was the next year. Right. And all of a sudden I looked up and I was 35 and it was time to go.
Yeah, there it is. It's a theme we talk about a lot on From the Ground Up, the entrepreneurs. And GE specifically, I mean, I've known a lot of executives come out of GE. A lot of them came from a company who was acquired by GE. And for better or for worse, as anytime you look back in hindsight, people can be critical. But the reality is in the 80s and 90s, right, in Jack Welch days, and developing the managerial guidelines and the Six Sigma management style, that was such a great training ground to build your business acumen to become that entrepreneur.
As I say to people, I have no formal MBAs. I have an undergraduate degree from the University of Maryland, but I've got 5 MBAs from GE, which the training ground was phenomenal. And I knew it probably in my mid-30s, early 30s, that I needed probably another year or 2 under my belt at GE to learn a little bit more on the finance side of the business and how I was going to launch it and get it to take off. But the training was phenomenal. And Jack Welch at that point was, the leader in the industry. We were either number 1 or number 2, or we were out of that market. So we were doing pretty well. But I also had that spirit where I was like, okay, it's time for me to kind of move on. And they were trying to promote me and relocate me to another city out of Baltimore. And I had just gotten here a couple of years, and I'm had little kids, and I wasn't up for the next move, as they would move every 2 years if they could.
Yeah, that's what they like to do, right? GE likes to move around. And the other thing they like to do is really promote a competitive, right?
Absolutely.
The low man on the pole is out, and the high guy moves on, and everybody else is still is fighting. Did building that competitive spirit, how did that translate into what you did in business after you left and started your business, which, by the way, the name of that business, CyberCore, we're going to talk about that. Sure. But how'd that translate?
So GE clearly was survival of the fittest. If you didn't excel and really shine inside the organization and beat your quota and always be an overachiever, you were out. It didn't take long to see who the bottom of the barrel was. They were leaving. You knew it. They knew it. And they probably would try and get out before they got taken out. But when I started CyberCore, I had that instinct. My father was a 20-year military person, airborne ranger, ran the house, extremely strict, very competitive. All 8 of us were extremely sports-oriented, academic-oriented. But he drove a tight ship. And when I got in the company, I knew the only way I could launch a company and to take some of those skill sets from GE was to be very organized and very competitive. Either we were going to be number 1 or 2 in our market, or we probably weren't going to survive. It didn't matter that I wanted to be in or out of the market. We would be out.
Yeah. That is such fertile training ground. So many of the great entrepreneurs that we talk to, we have as clients, a lot of GE background.
Absolutely.
A lot of GE background, especially in the 80s and 90s, which, it's interesting back then, that's the old Wall Street, greed is good time period, right?
Absolutely.
When Gordon Gekko said greed is good. Yeah. So different now. It's interesting to think about how would GE translate in today's world. And what's interesting about it is, there's this tendency to look back at the Jack Welch days and say, man, that was harsh and that was tough. But business is hard, right? Being an entrepreneur is hard. Being successful, there's no soft landings. It's do or die.
Yeah, survival is the key, and as you know, starting a company is the rate of failure is so high. So you have to be so streamlined in your process. You have to be very focused on what your mission is and what you do well. And we had a lot of people that came along in the early days of CyberCore, as CyberCore launched, and the .com business came along. Everybody was saying, and my brother John and I, hey, you guys have got to get in this. And I said to John, and John would say to me every day, stay focused, stick to your knitting. Don't move from our market and what we do.
So let's talk about that transition. So your brother was with you at GE at the time,
That's right.
And John Powderly, who, and so the two of you are thinking, okay, for whatever reason, it's time. Yeah. Right? You've gotten to the place, you're ready, and you start CyberCore. Yeah. Tell me, share with us, what drove that? Where was your head at the beginning? How did you name CyberCore? That all kind of came together, and we're going to talk about the timing of this next, but it's interesting. I always find it interesting the moment, right? Yeah. When you pull it all together and you design it. Tell me about those first months. Yeah,
you look back and those pivotal points in your career or in your life, and clearly the day that we decided that we were leaving GE was pivotal. We had to go home to our wives, and John and I lived next door to each other, which was interesting. He's 4 years younger than me, so he was a little, in his mid-career at GE. But we sat down and we were sketching up where John and my role would be in the company. And we were thinking about what kind of name we would come up. And John is very innovative. And he's extremely smart in terms of the operation side of the business. And he started sketching. We had a couple of Coors Lights, I think, that night. And he started sketching on this napkin, cyber. And then he had this core competency. And I'm just sitting there staring at him. I'm going, don't have another Coors Light. I don't understand what cyber is. Cyber wasn't even a word.
Right, and that's right.
So here we are in August of 2000. And so he's sketching it out, and he's got this little tornado, and all of a sudden he's saying this thing's going to spin. It's going to be a whirlwind of technology. And I'm starting to catch on to what he's saying. I'm starting to think, cyber. I don't understand that yet, but I understand core. I understand the whirlwind of technology. I like that. And I don't care. I want to start a company, and I want to be my own boss, and I want to control my own destiny and drive my future. We know the business inside and out. We know what we're doing. There's a huge market share out there, but the market was still pretty stagnant. It wasn't, accelerating at any rate. There was really nothing going on the defense side at that point. So off we go. We resigned from GE at that point. We said, hey, we're going to do it. And we resigned on a Friday. And Monday morning, we had a little office up and running. And before we knew it, a couple of people from GE came over and said, hey, we want to join the team. And we're like, it's going to be tough to pay them, but we'll figure this out. And so they came on board, and we started with about 3-4 people.
So much to unpack there, right? I mean, just so much to unpack. It seems like, I love when I get an entrepreneur in the room because they tell us that story, and there's just, it's your life, and it seems so ordinary, right? Because you did it and it was successful, but so much to unpack. It's the courage to leave the steady, stable, right? And I remember my wife's look when I said, hey, we're having a lot of success here at Merrill. Let's just leave. Right? Let's go start a business. What's the worst that could happen? And so it's the courage. It's the support from the family. Huge. It's your brother and you, different competencies coming together, having trust, faith in a partner, the creativity around it, but more importantly, the excitement, right? The creativity is driven, I'm sure the Coors Light enhanced it, but it comes from the excitement. And then you just said something at the end, which is great. Talented people came in. And the difference, I think, between successful entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs who struggle is you didn't say, hey, we're not ready. We don't have the money. Let's wait till the cash flow gets to a certain level. It's they're talented. We'll be successful. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Let's just get them and let's run. Right?
Yeah. Just pull the ripcord and pull the Band-Aid off and let's go. Either we're going to do it or we're not going to do it. And I think
That's awesome.
I had spoke one time, maybe about 10 years ago, on calculated risk, which meant I did mortgage the house, but I basically was calculated in terms of where I was going to put that money. I just didn't take it and say, hey, we're going to start paying people and bring them on. But we were really blessed with our, as you mentioned, with the spouses, my wife, Emily, and John's wife, Christine. They were so supportive of what we were doing. And that really helped us breathe. It helped us relax a little bit during the day because, as you know, there was so much stress in the business with a startup and trying to get it off the ground and get going. And then as you hear our story goes on, things got really turbulent very quickly in about 8 months.
Right. Well, so when I don't know if I've ever told you a story. So when I came to Maryland from New Jersey, my wife and I had to take a 3/4 pay cut. I was making almost nothing. She's like, let's go. Right. If you think this is a good thing, and we came down, and I always say this, and the reason for the story is I always say, I don't think I really fully appreciated how much risk I took until after I was through it.
That's right.
Because I was just focused on outcome. And I was determined, and I was confident because I was determined.
That's right.
And that's what I hear from you. I hear, listen, we're not going to go thinking risk first. We're going to think about what we can do.
Right.
We know what we can accomplish. Let's just go accomplish it.
Just make it happen.
That's great.
And stay focused and don't get out of your swim lane. And that was really our key to our success out of the block.
Yeah. Future entrepreneurs, take that one. Take those pieces. Those are nuggets. Those are takeaways. Right, Michelle? Takeaway one.
Takeaway one. I've noted it right here. We've got our title. We've got our title right here.
Thank you. So then, it's in every business that has had success, there's a moment. And there's a moment that changes the course of the business. Some people call it luck. Some people call it, fortune. I like to call it an opportunity recognized, seized, and an entrepreneur understands. You had the moment of all moments, the most heart-wrenching but biggest moment that could have possibly happened in your business. Tell me about that 8 months later.
So we launched in August of 2000. We've got a nice little business going. We're not killing anybody or building anything that's so great, but it's starting to move, and we're starting to see some success. And we're slowly utilizing relationships that we've had in the space for 15 years. And it was going pretty good. And then all of a sudden, 9 months later, 9/11 hits. And the world stopped, and we stopped in our tracks. We're a defense contractor in the intelligence community, and we're starting to think, we can't get anybody to return our phone call. Everybody's just stagnant. And we reach out to our law firm, and we're starting to ask them what their bankruptcy protection laws in the state, because we can't seem to get any traction. And our biggest client calls and says, we're actually bidding a massive contract that we'd like you guys to be part of. And we've had such a good relationship with with this individual that ran one of the biggest defense contracting companies. And he said, we're going to bid this. We want you on the team. Long story short, about 2.5, 3 months later, they fast-tracked the contract. Out of 11 companies, they won. They turn around and call us. And if I look at a pivotal moment that I didn't recognize how pivotal it was going to be is when I got the phone call and said, are you sitting down? I thought it was bad news. I said, oh, man, we're going to lose this one, and I don't know what we're going to do. And he said, we have just been awarded a 10-year contract worth $2+ billion. We're going to award you a 10-year contract, and you're going to help us do all the infrastructure. And that opened up a whole opportunity, but it also created so many unknowns for us. Was how are we going to get the capital to grow? We don't have a big enough facility. We're going to have to build that. And so we went into overdrive and just started putting everything on the whiteboard and started figuring it out and pulling in the right players to help us. And off we went. And from that point, it skyrocketed over the next 7 years. And just the growth was exponential. And it was just, but it was tough to keep up with. It was a stressing on us. It was a stress on the company. It was a stress on our families. Everybody was under the gun. But we knew it was going to be a huge success because it was growing so fast. So that was a good time, but it was also a very stressful time that we dealt with.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think what's amazing about it is moments like that. So, in the definition of luck, right?
Yeah.
Luck isn't random.
Right.
Right. Luck is purposeful. Luck is execution. Luck is recognizing. And that was a big moment, but also you just hit it on the head. Okay, so we got it. Now what?
Right.
Right. Now we got to execute on this son of a gun.
Absolutely.
Right. How do we get that thing and get it running at full speed so that you can build the business that you want, right?
That's right.
And keep the reputation that you have. And the reputation got you the opportunity.
That's right. The relationships, the reputation, past performance, they knew we were executors. They loved us. They loved working with us, which made us feel great. But at the end of the day, they put a lot of faith in us. And, John and I have spent a lot of endless, weekends and days and nights not letting anyone down. It meant everything to us at the company. We had a reputation. And that's why people were attracted to it. A lot of employees that came on board were like, we want to be part of this. We want to be part of the success. We want to be part, which is more important than the success, was being part of the mission, defending our national interests and being part of that. We had a lot of military that worked for our firm. We had a lot of people that the parents were military, and it meant a lot to them, and it meant a lot to us. So we put a lot of effort in that area. So
let's go from there. What describe how you built a culture?
Yeah.
Right. If you have this giant monster just thrown in your lap, and you got to manage it, but you also have to build a culture, right? There's no such thing as a great company with a terrible culture.
That's right.
So how did you balance all that? How did you manage all that?
Yeah, I think that was the hard part, was trying to diffuse a lot of the stress in the organization to try and make the quality of work and the life for the employees beneficial to them, not only financially, which meant a lot to them. We put a lot of incentives out there to help drive behavior, to help grow the company. But in a fiduciary responsibility for us was that we had to control. We couldn't just go out buying other companies or doing things that didn't make sense in our swim lane. So we stayed focused on that, but we also built a culture where we would do a lot of events. We would do huge, like Oriole games, but we didn't invite the employees only. We invited all their family. And we spent a lot of time at those events going around to the spouses, the husbands, the wives, and the children, and thanking them for the sacrifice that their loved ones are doing working for CyberCore, because it was a lot of work. A lot of times it was weekends, it was late nights of getting systems up and running, mission critical work that had to be up and running. And a lot of people sacrificed a lot of things, but a lot of them did it for us, and they did it for the mission too, which meant a lot to us. They knew how patriotic we were, and they wanted to be part of that success.
So the culture is defined mission, collaboration around an outcome. Be grateful for the people and the families that you have, and let them know it. I mean, I think
Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
You hit it all right on that head. And I think that breeded, we would say to them, when we would look to, an employee would say, hey, I have a friend that wants to come work at CyberCore. And we would absolutely, the first thing we would say, they'd have to have the same values and the same mantra that you have, and that they're going to bring that to the table here. If they're not on board with that, and they're really talented from a technical standpoint, we're not interested.
Yeah, and a lot of the younger listeners maybe of From the Ground Up may not fully appreciate that the post 9/11 moment was the first time where we as a country, we were attacked on our ground.
That's right.
And it was jarring. And the entire security and defense apparatus of the largest military and the biggest country in the world was changing radically at light speed. And you were literally at the center, the core
Absolutely.
of that change. I can't imagine what the frenetic pace that is.
Yeah, I think if you looked at that time in our country, it was critical, and it was critical what we were doing and what all the other contractors were doing and what the government was doing. We had to secure the networks. We had to secure the penetration that people from outside countries were trying to get into the networks and take our critical information and our and
the networks are all new.
Yeah,
I mean the internet is is really just getting going right at that same time, early 2000s. This is starting to pick up, so that's developing at a breakneck pace, and you have the whole military complex changing at a breakneck pace.
And you have government agencies that have systems that are 20 years old that can't support them. So companies like ours were infiltrating with all kinds of new technology, collaborating with great manufacturers, and being part of a full solution.
Yeah. So how did you and John handle stress points? I mean, did you? Is it natural because you're brothers? Yeah. Right. I'm sure there's been a few times in the backyard where you guys tussled and may have gotten into it. So how did you handle that? Did you get along? What was your mechanism for your relationship to make sure that you guys were together and being productive as brothers? The first thing I would say to any entrepreneur with a partner, whether it's your brother or just a regular partner, is 100% respect. And be careful what you say because you can't take that back once it's said. And I think we took a lot of our upbringing, and there were a lot of days that we had, hundreds of employees out on the floor, and we would go into the office together and just sit there and say, how are we going to make payroll? How are we gonna do this next launch they want? Us to build $1 million build right now. We also got 3 in the queue that we can't even get out the door, and we got this one they want us mission critical, has to be done. But I think we were very lucky that we both were not on the same path in terms of what we did for the company, and that was the most critical. I always said to John, we do not want to go to the customer together every day. You go left, I'll go right. You attack this side, I'll attack that. John was an expert in operations, so he knew supply chain inside and out. He built our 100,000 square foot distribution facility out at Elk Ridge. It was the most beautiful thing you ever seen. $10 million worth of product in there. They mopped the floor every day. I mean, the place looked like it was the most. If customers would come in, they're like, these guys are organized. They've got a system, and we spent a lot of money on infrastructure too, and we reinvested a lot. We built a $4.5 million skiff inside our facility. We had a data center. One thing that we did when we built our facility, we put everybody in one facility. A lot of people were saying, hey, why don't you executives move up the street into a high rise in a glass building? I said, we're going to be on the ground floor. I love that. And we're going to be all together as one company. And the people in the back of the warehouse are going to be able to come to the front door, and we're all going to be part of this collaboration together. I love that. Absolutely love that. And I love be careful what you say because it sticks. So, Michelle, you're doing a wonderful job. Thank you.
Words matter. I agree. And I'm sorry. I don't think we got that on film. Can you say that one more time?
No, again, parallel. Michelle Michelle was a big part of designing this. And same thing. Beautiful. Be proud. Yeah. Something your clients are proud of, something your employees are proud of, and build it out for them. That's right. That's why they want to come here. That's why they want to come. That's terrific. So, and then more of the family came into the business. Yeah. So, a couple of years in, my one brother who lived in Long Island, 15 months younger than me, called up and said, hey, I've been in this other industry for the last 10 years. I want to move to Maryland, and I could think he thought we played a lot of golf and didn't work too much. But he said he's going to come down. I said, well, it's going to be a challenge because we're kind of just really ramping up, and you're really not in the technical space. I'll start at the entry level. And that's all he needed to say to me. I said, wow. I said, okay. So come in, because I knew he was smart as a whip. I mean, and this is my brother, Andy, and he was so smart, and John and I knew we could benefit. And the trust factor. We knew you could trust Andy with everything we had. And we had a lot of,
information and things that we were working on that we needed to bounce off other people besides just our law firm and our accounting firm. We needed someone we could trust outside of John and I. So Andy was perfect. And then as the business really started to grow, I called my oldest brother, who worked for the Bank of New York, Tom, and said, "Hey, we're going to be hiring a high-level CFO. What qualifications would I want in terms of a CFO? I'm going to be interviewing down here." And he lived in New York. And he said, "Well, this." He gave me a whole laundry list. I said, "Okay, we're gonna be hiring that person pretty quickly." And of course, the phone rang 2 days later. It wasn't Tom; it was my mother. "Oh, Tom's going to work at CyberCore." I said, "Yes, Mom, of course."
Of course.
So
Don't say no to Mom. That's
Don't say no to
that's a
Mom.
good takeaway.
So Tom said, I'd be interested in helping you run that company. It looks like what you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. And he's a whiz finance, which meant the world to us because I think there was a lot of Enron stuff going on. And I was kind of getting a little nervous with that piece of the business as it was growing so fast and all the bank relationships. And Tom said, "I'll relocate to Baltimore and I'll run the finance for you." That was a no-brainer. So Tom came in and off we went. And the four of us were kind of meeting in the conference room every week, talking about family matters and then talking about the business all day.
Right, the four horsemen of Long Island.
So true.
Well, that's such a good story. And we get that question from entrepreneurs from time to time, mostly with kids.
Yeah.
But it's family, right? And if they come in, can they slack off, or how do how do we have a respectful relationship? So you guys figured that out. You were able to create because you trust family. Yeah. That's the advantage of family. You said it.
Yeah.
You can trust that they're there looking out for your best interest because they're family.
Yeah, for us it worked. I mean, I was the CEO and I ran the company, and so we would meet and everybody would just air out what was going well, what they like, what we can improve on. But we never had any big issues.
That's great.
And so from that standpoint, it was a huge success. But we also have 25 grandkids out there that all of a sudden start looking at the business, and you start figuring out, hey, can I come work there? And so we had a famous saying, which is, you decide when they come in, they decide when they leave. Mm-hmm. And so you got to be very careful and make sure that's really what they want to do. And are they, on the computer side, and is this something that they really have a passion for? Or they just want to come work and stay at the firm. Right.
No, that's great. So you're ramped up. You've got the right people in place.
Yep.
The four horsemen are in place, and you have other executives.
Yep.
You've got some great dedicated people. They're all about the mission. They're all about this change, and the company's growing. You had your stress points. You got through them.
Yep.
Right, brilliantly. So when did you know you had gotten over the top?
Yeah, probably about 4 or 5 years into it, maybe about 5. I think that we started really feeling comfortable. We were able to release some bank relationships that we didn't need anymore. We could self-fund a lot of the work that we were doing. We started controlling our own destiny. So that was really good. I mean, and that meant a lot to us at some point when the receivables got to a point where we could just kind of fund the business ourselves, and it allowed us to control. We were very fiduciary in our spending of company money and stuff, but we also wanted to control our own destiny. Mm-hmm. And so those areas, those reflection points were, at that point we felt really comfortable. We had good advisors. We had Mike Bader from Venable that was our lead counsel since we started, and really helped us, advised us. They had some high-tech lawyers that specialized in the defense side, so we met with them a bunch of times and saw what other firms were doing. So that kind of worked out pretty well for us.
Yeah. Mike is a wonderful guy and had a great career even after his legal career in the venture capital world. So obviously very smart in this space. And so your capital was banks before that.
Yep.
And that's always tough, right?
Yeah.
Because banks they're great. They can be great partners early. And as soon as it starts to get a little complicated, right, then all of a sudden they're like, wait, everybody slow down. I have 25 restrictions I have to put on this money. And that gets very frustrating.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for us was as entrepreneurs, the bank would come in. We had all these specific covenants, and a lot of entrepreneurs know that our debt to equity was out of whack. We were growing so fast, so they'd come in and say, "Hey, listen, we need you to slow down the engine." And then as soon as they went out the back door, someone would come up and say, "Hey, we got this project for $2 million." So I'd call a customer and say, "Hey, can you pay us that other, the other 3.2 you owe us? Instead of giving us 3.2, give us 3. million, give us 3.1. And they'd be like, sure. And then they'd pay. And then I'd rethink and I'd tell the guy, let's go to the next project. And the bank would call a week later. Did you just get another big project?
That's such an amazing statement. The difference between banking and an entrepreneur, right? You have to slow down because your debt to equity is out of whack.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there, what?
Yeah, we're growing like crazy. It's all profitable, and the business is doing amazing. The funniest story was at one point we were dealing with a bank, which we leased pretty quickly after this. But we went up to a meeting in New York, and there was a guy that we hadn't seen before. And John and I looked at each other and said, I haven't met him before. And so they were very hush-hush, and all of a sudden we realized he was a workout guy.
Oh, jeez.
And we're like, what? They're like, no, we're just protecting our interests. We just want to make sure as this company continues to explode through this growth that, we don't have an issue. But if there is one, you'll have to deal with him. So as soon as we got back, we started a new relationship down with another bank. And I called the person up and I said, the top person, about a week later, I said, what's the payoff on the note? And they gave us a number, whatever it was, 21 million or something. I said, okay, we're going to pay that off this afternoon. We have a new relationship. And they were like, no, we love you and you borrow money and we hate you when you pay it back. They were not happy with us. We moved on.
That's amazing. Meanwhile, by the way, the guy over in the corner had a black suit, white shirt, black tie. He's pounding his fist. He's like, I'm the guy who works at
I'm gonna work it.
It almost sounds like they sent a hitman over to convince you.
It didn't take me long when I got back to exit that relationship, but I already had stuff in the. That was the one thing that we really did a good job was as we had existing relationships, we were always massaging and seeing what was out there and meeting with other financial institutions. Are we going to fund it ourselves? Are we going to expand the growth and everything? We really threw the net out there pretty wide, and I recommend a lot of entrepreneurs, as you're growing your business and you think you're secure with one relationship, just explore other options and always have something in the backdrop in case the shoe hits the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you're running, you're accomplishing something big.
Yeah.
I mean, you were firming up some really important defenses in the military, in the government. And you really were at that pivotal moment. I mean, that had to feel great.
Yeah.
Right? That you were making this change. Now you're successful. You're self-funding. You're growing. You're managing a massive business. You've tackled culture.
Yeah.
You're doing this. Not only is it a great service, but it's a service that is obviously been in high demand ever since, and only gets more in demand as time goes on. And at some point, you think, okay, there's an exit here, right? We built a business. You had a unique exit, right? And you didn't even fully exit, right? But you had a unique process to gain liquidity.
Yeah.
And listen, every entrepreneur out there, even if you want to keep the business forever, right? I always say, we want Verdence to be a forever company. It's still out there. It's still in your head. There's still so many entrepreneurs out there, and they have cash flow, but they don't have liquidity.
That's right.
Because that's what being an entrepreneur is, pouring everything you got back in. And so you hit that moment, and you sit down and you make that decision. We should think about this. Can you walk me through the beginning phases of that and where you went? Because your exit is really, I think, interesting for entrepreneurs to hear.
Yeah, and I think if you actually there was just some news that came out 2 weeks ago. We just did the final sale to Hewlett Packard. But in 2007, no even thought process of any type of liquidity. We were dumping every penny we made back into the business. We were building a SCIF. We were building a data center. We built a new facility.
For those who don't know, a SCIF is
a high level facility within your facility where they can't penetrate through it. They can't penetrate any technical information out of it. Everything in there is high level security, and you can't get out of it. It's Fort Knox inside your building, and very expensive to build, very expensive to run. But it was necessary for us. But what happened with that whole process was as we went and really started growing, and we really felt comfortable. We had everything going great. It wasn't that we went out to think like, hey, this is a good time to start taking some chips off the table. The market went crazy, and New York and all these private equity firms started flooding the Mid-Atlantic area, and they started getting all the contract. Now, they couldn't buy the big guys. They couldn't buy the Northrops, the Lockards, but they can come after what we call the tweeners. These are not small businesses, but they're companies like CyberCore, about $250 million in revenue. They can scale them, they can buy them, they get the clearances, and they can scale them pretty quickly. When they approached us, we were absolutely adamant that there was no interest in any sale. We were loving running the company. We finally felt like the stress level was down, but we were challenged with one thing: we were cash poor. Every penny we made went back into business. Not only went in, we added more to it because we kept getting bigger projects. And so as soon as we got paid, we would go to our CFO and say, hey, we'd like to take some distribution. He goes, I'd love to give it to you, but we just gave it to a new project that we're using. So from that standpoint, it kind of, the private equity opened our eyes a little bit. We didn't want to go to a strategic because that process you go through and then they find out all your clients and they know everything you're doing and how you're doing it. And we had a lot of secret sauce in our business. We were doing a lot of creative, really good things that the customer liked, and we didn't want to share them with everybody, why we were so successful. Because people were saying, how are these guys so successful growing at this rate year over year? And a lot of it was a lot of the quality work that we were doing, but it also was relationships, and it also was being very smart on the proposal sides and understanding what the client was really looking for.
Yeah, and an NDA from a strategic is nice, but they don't unsee what they've seen.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, they don't unsee.
Yeah, they'll sign it in 2 seconds, but I'll hear about it 3 weeks later, and I'm like, where'd you hear that from? Because the only person I told was this person.
Right. Sounds like the neighborhood gossip channel. So then how'd you get engaged?
Yeah, so they came down to the Mid-Atlantic area. Mike Bader, our law firm, said, hey, we've got this private equity firm. They've been following you. They want to meet with you. Why not do a round of golf and just hear them out? I said, we'll hear them out, but we're not interested. I think we're just going to, keep running this at this level. And then they started, they're very intelligent executives. They started saying, yeah, I agree with that, but don't sell the company. Just sell a portion of it to us and let us be partners with you. Let's grow it together. We have a lot of powder on the sideline. We can help you grow this thing exponentially, and we can really get it done quickly. And we really liked the team. And although we liked them, we still went out to a big M&A firm, Lazard, and we put a process together because I hadn't been through it before, and I wanted to see how many
that makes
people,
perfect sense.
Yeah, how many people would come and how many would put a bid in on CyberCore, and how valuable really was it. Obviously, they gave us some numbers, but it's like your house. You're not going to sell it to the first person that walks up because they say, I'll give you this price. So we put a process together, had Lazard take us out, and we explored it. And we did about 13 management presentations. We probably got 10 bids and went to a bid war. And so we sold off a portion of it. We were like, wow, this is really great. And it worked great. They were phenomenal partners. They were very finance driven, performance, but the market was rocking. We were running a great show, and they really liked it. And we had a really good, we stayed with them for 4 years. And the company had doubled in size. EBITDA had doubled up to about 20 million. And they said, hey, what are your thoughts now in the market? I said, let's go to another process. So we hired again, and we did it. And we sold off to a private equity in New York, Moelis Capital, and a great relationship with them. And I ran it for about 2 more years after that. And then I was at the that was 2013. I stepped out. I said, I don't want to run day to day. I was a chairman of the board up until about a month, 2 months ago. Just ran the board.
So much to take away there. Much to take away there. It was just such a well-run process.
Yeah.
And so much to take away. The first, by the way, is that Mike Bader is a genius because he said, let's go play golf. What do you have to lose? Now, what people may not know, Kevin is an exceptional golfer. He's a great golfer. And so what Mike Bader knew is you were leaving that with money one way or the other. This is a cash flow positive event. But so there are entrepreneurs out there, they love their business. It's their baby. They know it's growing and they don't want to get rid of it. Such a smart approach, right?
Yep.
You were thoughtful. Okay, there's an issue with going to a strategic, even though that tends to get a higher multiple.
That's right.
Right? But there's an issue there. You found a good partner, but you still went through a process. You were fair to yourself and to your shareholders.
Yep.
And you sold a little.
Yeah.
Enough that I'm sure, and I'm going to ask you that question, how did it change your life when you got your first taste of liquidity? It's almost, all right, I can exhale a little bit, but not enough of a sale that you can go
right.
play golf every day.
That's right.
Now you're still highly motivated, and it seems like such a great balance. It's one, I think sometimes they call, and Sean, I don't know if you've ever heard this term, Silicon Valley of the East, right? The Baltimore, Washington corridor is Silicon Valley of the East, because there's so much great technology that's developed here. But one of the main differences between that and Silicon Valley is Silicon Valley, they want to keep companies until they're multi-billion-dollar organizations. And the East tends to turn over more because they're engineers, they're ex-military, they grow a business.
Contracts run out.
You grew a business, you got it really big, bigger than most in the East. But you still want to keep going, so you took a bite. That's just such a good process you ran. And you what was that like on the other side? Did it change your motivation? Were you just as motivated? How did having that one piece of liquidity, but with the big back end bite, how did that work when you're in your head?
I think it really, I knew at some point in there, as the company grew and it kept getting bigger and bigger and our financials got stronger and stronger and we were able to really exponentially grow the company at some point. I just didn't know when that ever point was going to come, because every time I look at my bank account, I'm like, it's going back in the business. So when I agreed to do it, John and I said, you know what, let's do this, but let's stay control. Let's keep running it. And let's really look at the second bite of the apple as the big one. Mm-hmm. And so we did it. And it really allowed us to sleep at night a little bit better, right? Because we didn't have everything tied into the business and into facility and everything that we had built. So from our standpoint, that was like the first time our wives could sit back and say, okay, they're not ready to retire. They're still in their
Thank God.
Yeah, be home all day. But it really helped. It helped John and I just kind of take a deep breath and now have partners and say, hey, partners, we're all in this together. And they were good partners. And out of the 14 companies, even if they weren't the highest bidder, we probably would have picked them because we knew the background on them. We knew, but talking to them, I mean, we had a lot of meetings with them before we made a decision. And it was important to John and I. We were like, this is important. We got to make the right decision because we got to live with these guys. And they were good partners. And they actually helped us. They knew a lot of people in the space. They helped us build a really strong board. They knew some people that ran the agency before, that were generals that came out. They said, Kevin, you go meet with the general and you get him come on the board. So I met with the general. I said, hey, we want you to sit on CyberCore's board. And he said to me, I don't think so. I said, we're going to make it worth your while. We just need you to come on the board. And so we had a golf event with him. And at the end of that, I said, if I beat you, you're going to come on the board. He says, you didn't tell me that you were 3 handicap. That was kind of unfair.
Hey, military intelligence, you had access to it. You didn't use it.
Yeah. So and then we kind of went along. And then we had a goal for the next exit was to get to a certain EBITDA number. And that really drove our motivation because now we started, Mike and Beta was helping us with the exits out of that. And we were like, wow, if we can get this thing to this number, which we think we can do. And we did it in 48 months. We doubled the company and we got it up to that number. And then we knew that it was it because the people that were buying it from there were like, well, we could take this thing to the stratosphere. This company is just positioned. And so we did one more sale and then I just ran the board and then so we kept it going.
That's so good. And the other interesting thing for those who are thinking exit, there was a little tidbit in there when you said, these guys are great partners. And there's a couple things here. One, you picked a good partner, right? The fact that they could bring in business. Too many times what we see is people are so focused on just getting some cash.
That's right.
Right? Focus on the next step as well, right? What can this become?
Yeah.
And to get an extra turn on a multiple and pick the wrong partner does long-term damage to your outcome. Yeah.
And they saw a huge value with us. They were very adamant that John and I stayed in, that we would run it, and that we would have control and we would report to them, which was fine with us. But they had some ad backs, so they took our Ravens box away from us right away. So that hurt.
It is private equity. It is private equity. Yeah, I mean, that was the other point you said. You said, listen, they're not very numbers focused. If you're going through a process and private equity's on the other side, it's kind of like the other extreme of the bank.
That's right.
Right? Where the bank is an extreme, then they don't want to hear anything you have to say.
That's right.
All they care about is their covenants. private equity doesn't want to hear anything you have to say. All they care about is the growth.
That's right.
Of the enterprise value.
Yeah. And we delivered what we had sold them on, so they liked that. Obviously, that made things easier. We didn't oversell what we can do, and as we kind of moved along together, it really was working well. And then all of a sudden, we could see ourselves in probably about the 44th month in being in business with them. It's only 4 years. We started saying, hey, we can hit that number. We should start talking about before we get to the EBITDA number that you want. I think it's a good time for us to go again.
Yeah.
So that worked out well.
Yeah, it's a great story. It's a great design.
Yeah.
You retain control of the operations. Because what we also hear a lot is there's these acquisitions, and the acquirer, whether strategic or private, says, hey, we want you here for the long haul because we believe in you, and 6 months later,
yeah, you're out.
And that happens more than it doesn't.
No question.
Right? Your outcome is actually the unique outcome. So you did it by growing. First of all, perform and the relationship's better, but there's got to be more to that.
Yeah, I think it was expectations. We had a lot of long conversations before we picked them as one of the on the second go around as the company we were going to go with. We looked at strategics, and we knew we were out right if we got acquired by our strategic. They would take us out immediately and say we're going to have our team run it, which would be fine. But we knew with this private equity that they wanted us to do. They really, really passionately were like, we want you guys to run it. But if the world changed and they did come to us in 8 months or a year and said, you guys are out, we had built up enough liquidity in our personal life that it wouldn't have changed that much for us. But we just love running the business, and they knew it, and they knew the culture was built around us. But they knew that we were not the type of people that were like, we're not going to let them in. They were part of the team. They owned a large portion, so we all collaborated together.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's great. You treat each other with respect, and
that's right.
And the key was set expectations, meaning be honest, right?
Yeah.
We know what you want.
Yeah.
And you know what we want,
yeah.
Right? We want liquidity. We want a bigger bite at the apple on the second round.
That's right.
And we're not ready to retire. And our wives certainly aren't ready for us to retire. Sometimes I have to tell you the spatula story. I'll tell it right now. I had a client who retired, and his wife was a little unhappy with his presence in her world after he worked 80 hours a week for 30 plus years. And so he decided to do something nice one day. He decided to clean the kitchen before she got up and put the dishes away. And the poor guy was holding a spatula, and his wife walked in the door and said, "What are you doing with that spatula?" And he said, "I'm putting it in this drawer." "That's not where it goes. I've been putting that spatula away for 30 years. You're not going to decide where it goes." And he said, "I just put it on the counter and I walked away." So for those who are thinking about retirement, remember the spatula story. So this is great. So you had this great relationship. You executed.
Yeah.
Been the key to your whole life.
Yeah.
Key to your whole life, right? Go down to Maryland, get a degree. Go to New York, be successful. Get into GE, be one of the ones that go up, not down.
Yeah.
Execute at the beginning with all the risk. Execute with your private equity partner. I mean, this has been a consistency of the process for you, your brother, your family. And so second bite comes, you're successful. Yep. You're still involved. You're still the chairman. You're pulling away.
Yep.
But you got to go execute on something.
Yeah.
Right? You can't, people with your mentality, they don't just go to the golf course every day.
Right.
I know you love to play, but you got to be executing somewhere. And you really created a diverse portfolio of executing. I think this is important for people to hear, because if you're exiting, you have to understand who you are.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs just don't turn the light switch off and go into the super leisure life. It's not possible, right?
That's right.
You need it. You're one of the reasons you love golf is it's competitive.
Yeah.
You have to execute. But there's also your charitable endeavors, your family, right? The business and the industry. Walk me through how you made that transition and what are some of the areas that you got involved in.
So I think that being an entrepreneur and coming out and executing it probably at 50 was challenging. I don't think we really thought through that process. What would we do if we did exit out of the business? Would we go do another business? Would we just stay at home? So we stayed at home for about a week, and that was an absolute disaster. And every day we just go on the website and look at our bank accounts and say, okay, we don't have to go to work, but can't watch Mr. Ed all day. So we got to find something that we've got some passion about. So I kind of started moving towards board positions. I ran the board and was chairman of the board and took a board position at St. Joe's Medical Center, which I have a long history with. My wife was a candy striper there. Her father was a doctor there. So that was really important to me, and they approached me and said, hey, we're looking for some business and some technical people to come on. And so we did that, and I really enjoyed that. I've been on that for about 5 years. And then, just trying to figure out what to do. And about a year, I got really antsy, and I just started saying, this isn't me. I got to start figuring out something. My son worked at the company I sold. He had been there 7 years. He was excellent in the business. He knew the space inside and out. And I started talking with him about where does he see himself going, and he's kind of an entrepreneur himself. So we started talking. I said, I would love to do a collaboration with you. It was kind of my dream would be one day that he would run CyberCore. But I didn't want to put that pressure. CyberCore was a huge company. It had a lot of moving parts. It was very, complicated to run, just from so many different facets of the business. But I kind of pushed him on like where he saw himself. He was really enjoying his career there, but he said, I'd like to run something with you. So that kind of got my head spinning again. And all of a sudden here, before I know it, I'm back with the law firm and I'm setting up another company. And it really was fun, because my wife stood up and said, I'd like to get involved, because she worked with us in CyberCore in the early days and worked for GE for a while. She said, I'd like to participate at some level with this. And I was like shocked, because she says, I've watched you for the last 20 years build CyberCore and all the things that you've done. This could be kind of fun. I know we're not going to build another CyberCore that big, but
don't count on it.
Yeah. So we've been having a lot of fun. So the last year, we launched a company called CyberCore Technologies down in the intelligence community, and it's off and running. My son runs day to day, and we've got a facility over on Deerco Road, and we got one out at Elkridge, and it's taken off really fast, and he's having a lot of fun with it, and we're having a lot of fun, all of us together working. It's really worked out pretty well.
I see round two coming.
Yeah,
I see round two coming. Right, you got the your son has your blood, and he's motivated, and he has a really good mentor. So your dad was a mentor.
Yeah.
Right, with his military background and his structure, and your son has a mentor, and he's motivated. I know your son.
Yeah.
Patty's a great guy, and I'm excited. I'm excited for you guys. How is that? How's that going with working with your wife and your son? How's that relationship going?
It's been really good. My wife has watched this business inside and helped us in the early days when we launched CyberCore. We couldn't hire each person, so she came in, and John's wife came in, and every day they would just work for free, and they were helping us hire. We were hiring about 5 people like every 2 days, and they were processing and doing all of it. And we kept saying, one day we're going to pay you. Just keep processing and getting these people in the door. And so now with my wife and son, my wife's extremely smart. Went to University of Maryland, and my son, he knows the space inside and out, and he's a relationship person. And so I've been basically just kind of guiding him along, like, hey, let's go meet this person when I'm in town. Let's go talk to this individual. Have you thought about this? And he really is kind of stepping up to the next level of running it. And he's had a lot of success. He's already have over like 10, 12 employees on board, and he'll have 25 within the next quarter.
That's such a great story. Yeah. And you figured something out, right? So one of the challenges we see with our clients who are business owners, when the business gets big enough, and your situation exactly, everything's tied up, right? We talked about lots of cash flow, not liquidity. And then there's that mental fight. My kids, who I love and I'm convinced I can work with, which isn't the case in every situation.
No question.
But when you get the talented kid or kids that you can work with, but you don't have liquidity,
right,
and the offer is there to change your whole family's life, but then you're giving up something, you struck yourself a little balance here.
Yeah, I don't think even in hindsight, I never would have changed what I did, because it really allowed me to step back and do those things, like to build a new company and to do, if I would have put so much pressure on him to run it, I don't think that's fair to him, because I don't know if he wanted to run it. I wanted to run it. I woke up and every morning, and it was funny in the early days, my brother lived next door, John, and our mailboxes were down in the court, and we would work all day at CyberCore. We would come home, and then we would call each other, say, I'll meet you down in the mailbox. We go down to the mailbox and we talk for another half hour. And our wives would come out the front door and say, these kids are in the bathtub. get up to the house and spend some time with them. But the passion that we had, and he has that passion, but as you know, running a big company with 500 plus employees and a lot of moving parts is extremely challenging. And you have to be wanting to do that. Yeah. Running a small company is a lot different, and it will grow. His company he's running now, but we'll cross those bridges as we get there. But
well, and you've given him a gift. You've given him the gift to go through what you went through.
That's right.
Right, because it is very different. Just taking over the operations of a company and building something, ready, Michelle, from the ground up.
From the ground up,
right?
You got it. Thank you for the plug in there. And I can't imagine the dinner conversations at your house too. I mean, you're just surrounded by ideas and the pace at which you're building this business, and that would be fascinating to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, at some point, my wife's like, "Okay, let's not talk business." But it really is.
And then you go to the mailbox.
Yeah, I go to the mailbox. John moved. But I think the fun thing with my son and my wife, and now my daughter's been helping to consult with us because she's so technical. She's helping us do a lot of the social media and stuff. She's having fun. She just moved back to Baltimore, got married a couple of weeks ago, so she's having fun, and they get to see what I did and what I built. And the reality is, I think Pat has more fun in a startup because everything that he's doing it. It's not like you said, like handing over CyberCore to him and saying, "Here, go run it." And it's like, well, you built it. I mean, you run it. You're selling it, sell it. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. But I think with expectations with the kids is the most important thing. Is really finding out, do they really want to be in this business? Do they really want to run it, or you want to be middle manager, or what do you want to do? Because they're different than us.
Right. And be honest.
And be honest.
Be honest. Be honest with them.
Yeah.
And really encourage them to be honest with you. Because of the lore of it, right?
That's right.
And looking at and
that's right.
Looking at and seeing it from the end backwards as opposed to seeing it from the beginnings forward.
Right. Yeah.
It's sometimes they may not have a true understanding of what's in front of them.
That's right.
But Patrick does.
Yeah. He's seen it from the ground zero. But I think the big thing that he's having fun with now is watching this thing blossom and starting to grow. And we had a meeting the other day with these clients, and they were like, "We're going to put you on this contract, and we're going to move this one to you." And I could see his eyes just lighting up because it's his. He's doing it. He's running it, and he's putting all the effort in to make it happen. And I'm just really proud of him that he loves doing it, and the success is there. That's the fun thing for him. He's starting to see success on his own, and it's not my success. He's been doing it, and he's really stepping up to the running a company, which I think is kind of fun. But I'm glad it's not a 500 person company and it's 10 people, 12, but it will be 100 within a year. So at that point, we cross that bridge and figure out what do we do when we get up to 100.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Amazing.
Tough problem.
No, it's just amazing. And he has it in his blood. It's clear that
he's so competitive. I mean, played lacrosse at Syracuse University. I mean, he's a competitive kid. Yeah. And, Syracuse was a type of program that you were number one to win a national championship, or you're going to be out on the sideline. So,
like GE.
Like GE, identical characteristics.
Yeah, like GE. Well, it sounds like a chip off the old block. So as you look back at your life now, blessed, right? Blessed. And wonderful marriage, great kids, grandchild. Yeah. You've had the success in business. You're getting to be a part of your son's building of his success. It's a question that's almost hard to ask because you've done so well and you've executed. If you could go back to 21-year-old Kevin Powderly, what would you tell him?
Stay focused. Stick to what you know, and just be. I think integrity is everything. And if you look at our business in the intelligence community, I mean, we're all at the highest level security clearance with the government. We're on light detector tests. We've got to do constantly, and so we live a life of fun and passion, but we're also very mission driven. And I think that showed with everything in our life that we did. But coming from a military background, our dad instilled that in us. I also was blessed to have a guy at one of the largest defense contracting companies that became a really good mentor of mine. He was a West Point guy, a guy named Milt Cooper. And he was just phenomenal. He gave us, I worked with him at GE. He was kind of my point of contact. And when I left GE and started CyberCore, he helped us along, and he kind of guided us and got us business opportunities. And he was so proud of us. He goes, "Listen, we have 90,000 employees in our company. If you screw up, there's nothing I can do with that tidal wave that's going to come at me. So you decide if you're going to really want to take this on." And we made sure every day and night that he was happy and we were doing the right thing. And then, so if I look at my 21-year-old self, I think my dad helped us, with our education and really sacrificed 4 of us in college at one time. Go where you want to go. You're going to take out the loan, so I don't care. You want to go down south? Go ahead. But I think that 21-year-old would stick to what you know. And I think that was probably our biggest success, was getting in a business and staying in a business that we know.
Did your dad see what you built?
Yeah, he did. It was actually kind of fun.
Because I got to imagine, not just that you were successful in business, but what you were successful in, right? The military guy watching his sons build the critical infrastructure to protect what he loves so much. I mean, he must have been overwhelmed.
Yeah, we would do videos, and we were obviously on the news a bunch of times with the ribbon cutting events that we did out at the intelligence community. We had obviously every governor come to our facility on some of the launches, and that just meant the world to him that we were really patriotic about what we did in our business, but how passionate we were about it, and how we made every employee understand the mission. Some of them would come in and we would give us the elevator speech on why CyberCore is different than our competitors. And if they didn't understand the mission and what we were doing, we would drill it into them, and they would figure that out. But from that standpoint, I think just being true to ourselves and being ethical with our business, that was the biggest thing that meant to John and I, was like, just be ethical on everything we're doing, and we won't have any issues. Right? We could solve we're going to have a lot of issues. We're going to have a lot of technical issues, a lot of glitches with legacy systems that don't test out. But when they called us, we would let's just be ethical and do what we have to do to get this fixed and get it up and running, and everything will work out well.
Okay. So, last question.
Yeah.
What's next? I mean, other than, more club championships or senior club championships. So, by the way, club championship or senior club championship? So what's next? What, I mean, you're going to work with your son.
Yeah.
Is there a big picture plan, or are you taking it as you come? Because this is something two people want to hear, what that's like as you get to this point.
If I take a look at where I am right now, my number one focus is to continually support my son on Interscore, because I know I can make a huge impact there to help him and just guide him along. It's not, I don't step in front of him and say, here, let me show you how to do it. I say, here's how you do it. Think about that. Bring it back to me. Let's look at it. Let's go meet with these individuals. I know them from the days where I was in the space. Let's go meet with them. And I watch him interface. He's so technical. He understands the space. He speaks their language. I've kind of been out of it a little bit. So some of the acronyms, they're throwing over my head. And they're like, you know what we're talking about, right, Kevin? I'm like, absolutely not.
Right, exactly.
But Pat, he speaks that language. So it's really fun to watch. And with your son, it's fun to watch them grow.
Right.
And it's fun to watch him from another side of being, an entrepreneur and pulling that out of him. As my wife says, don't push them so much. Let them develop. And having my wife in the business has been a real treat. She runs all the books. She does all the finance. She does all the HR. She interfaces with all our engineers and helps us and does that. And it's all for the love of our kids to have them run their own company, because they're starting to see how fun that is.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, how fun it is to run. I think Patrick worked at CyberCore for 7 years. He's like, I like CyberCore, but I like running my own company.
Yeah.
He controls his own destiny. He can really see that in front of him right now. So
it's different. It's different when you do it yourself.
And I would just tell any entrepreneur that, exits out of the business is just if they choose to stay in it at some capacity. Just keep your portfolio, keep your network out there. That's what I did a really good job of, keeping contact with everybody. And then when I launched this company with Pat, it was really just reconnecting with everybody. Right. Some of them were like, you're getting back into business? I said, no, my son's running it.
Yeah. Well, also, right, an exit out the door, it just means you're looking for a new door.
That's right.
Right. And,
right.
You exit out of one, you enter into another, and you really found a nice way to go through that pattern from different roles in CyberCore, and then with your philanthropic endeavors, and now with your son and your wife and your daughter.
Yeah.
Great story. Kevin, this has been a hell of a lot of fun.
Really fun.
I really appreciate you coming in. And it's not a surprise. I think if there's a common characteristic we see, right, it's the people.
Right.
And I know your brother John, I know your brother Andy. You clearly great people from a great core family, from up there in the Northeast, which is a great place to be from. Those core values, put that in the mix with some entrepreneurialism, risk-taking capability, and hard work, and there's a consistency there, right?
Yeah, and I think I think entrepreneurs and most people that will be listening to this podcast probably realize that entrepreneurs like us we hang together, right? That's why you and I have become friends.
Right.
I've admired what you guys have built, and when I came out to the facility here, I went back. I was more excited for this facility than I was at our facility. But I was telling my son, this will be you one day. We're going to build a facility, and it's just spectacular. It's a type of place that you would wake up in the morning and you would have a passion to come to. You walk in these doors and you'd be like, I'm part of something. Yeah. And it's just a beautiful, and we spent a lot of time with our facility. Our facility was massive like this. It was really important to us. We had every facet. You walk in, we had every military sign on the wall, every flag, everything that would create an environment for our employees to say, when I walk through these front doors, in God we trust, here we are. We are here to help the mission today. And it's been fun. I mean, you and I have had a good relationship, but we're both very similar in personalities, in passion, in vision. Our families are the most important thing, but our businesses are, there's no secret why you're successful or why I've been able to do what I've done. We really every morning wake up and we're feet on the ground and off we go.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think there's a couple similarities, and one is having the core behind you, right? The family, that core, that support
Absolutely.
level. And I think it's the mentality. It's funny, when I left Merrill, right, and I was at Merrill Lynch, and when I left Merrill, as you left GE, there was something I didn't anticipate, and that is my job at Merrill was to advise people on their wealth, and I did have business owners, but it wasn't until I became one that I fully understood them, but more importantly, they fully accepted me.
Yeah.
Right, because they viewed us now differently, right? As part of their community, as opposed to somebody trying to advise them from outside the community. And you probably experienced the same thing going from GE to owning your own business. It is different.
Absolutely.
Right? That moment changes everything.
Yeah. So, And I think I like to surround myself with people that are similar and have similar views. And, it's been fun working with Verdant because you guys really are, up cutting edge on the technology and doing these type of educational things for the clients that we can look at. We can go online. You definitely step the game up here big. So
yeah, we're gonna have to put a tornado in our logo. That's the only thing.
It's got to spin.
We'll call John our Verdant's logo. We got to start spinning it. Okay, well, I want to thank Kevin Powderly for coming in. This has been a wonderful conversation, and thank you for opening up. Tell us your story about CyberCore, about your days prior to CyberCore, and the exciting thing you're doing with Inniscorp and your son. And talking about the honesty about exits and how to think about those. I think this is going to help a lot of folks. And for those listening, I'm confident you have enjoyed this conversation. If you want to hear more of those, we encourage you to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify. You can go to our website, Apple Podcast. I think we're on all of them.
We are everywhere.
We are
you can't
everywhere.
Corner without it. And I would like to say too, if you hit the like and subscribe buttons, but most importantly, if you like what you've heard today and you want to share this with a friend or a colleague, that would mean the world to us. So.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, we don't have a spinning logo to click on, but we're working on it. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks Kevin, and we'll look forward to the next From the Ground Up.